I'm Bradley Vincent, curator at HOTA Gallery on the Gold Coast. HOTA Gallery is thrilled to be supporting local artists to make new work. Next year, we'll be putting 20 local artists and artist collectives on display on the largest stage that's ever been available in the city. When we called for submissions, we asked for artists to submit a proposal of their choosing. What has emerged in the 20 selected artists is a real connection to place. There is, amongst them, a rich interest in nature and the environment. Also, a reflection on development and our human impact on the environment and what we extract from it. And, optimistically, a look at the individual in relation to nature and how we might find space for reflection in the world around us. In this podcast series, members of the HOTA Youth Advisory Group will sit down for a one-on-one with these artists to talk about their practice, their background, and the work they're making for HOTA in 2021.
So today we're joined with artists Melissa Spratt and Erica Gray. Thank you so much for joining us. I thought it'd be a nice opportunity for us to come together and have a chat in the lead up to the exhibition opening in April next year. So I've tried to do some thinking around the pairings with each of the Youth Advisory Group artists and the exhibition artists for next year. And I thought it'd be nice to bring you two together because of your practice and particularly with textiles. But maybe you could talk a little bit, each of you, about like the materials you use in your day-to-day and why you're drawn to them.
Yeah, I can go first. So my name's Melissa and I've been on the Youth Advisory Group for a little while now, which I've been really enjoying, and it's great to be able to be connected with yourself, Erica, through here. But my practice is predominantly based around textile work that uses the technique of finger knitting. So I've become very attached to finger knitting through sort of the therapeutic action that it requires, and it's quite a calming process for me. So creating long lengths of finger knitted wool and then adhering that to different surfaces. So most recently, mostly rugs and wall hangings, but I have done some furniture and things like that as well. So still exploring how far I can push the boundaries with that core process of finger knitting. So yeah, that's me.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm a textile artist as well, as you said. And I originally had a background in fashion, so I was very much drawn to pattern making and incorporating that into my sculpture making. So I do three-dimensional sculpture made out of fabric. And a lot of people go, oh, what is it? And I go, it's an outer skin that is stuffed essentially like a cushion. It's probably not a great way of saying what you do, but just to make it simple. And then I put a backing on it, which I often with my work is mounted on the wall. So I'm really interested in developing these forms that extend past the surface and create a different kind of animal I'm textile based, although I do incorporate quite a lot of different mediums into my work. I'm a bit too curious for my own good. Like I really love 3D printing filament and 3D printing as a whole. So I'll use 3D printing filament, but in a hand-drawn way, using the same sort of 3D printing hot end, which melts the filament and then it sets into a flexible film that is set in your pattern. And so I'll make sculpture using that technique. And I like to explore different mediums. So that's where my interest kind of lies.
And your sculptural practice, are these forms, are they literal or are they more abstract?
To me, they're kind of a blend of both. Like I like to capture that connection, the obvious feel of a work, that it's a creature that someone can look at and identify, and that for me sort of is wrapped up in an empathy that you might be able to attach yourself to a recognizable form. But I also don't want to be too literal, so they won't be something you've seen before. They'll be a little bit skewed.
My longest work that I produced was when I was at the Walls in 2018 for my solo exhibition that I had there, and that I was there for 3 months, and it took the entire 3 months, but it was a 3 metre long rug. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of the scale and timeline, hopefully.
Time-wise, I've had RSI from working. I'm very obsessive, and I'll sit down for like 8 hours. I'll get up and have a coffee, probably twice.
Wow.
And then I'll do a different type of work at night time while I'm sitting at TV. Although, if I'm crocheting at night time, my partner always laughs because I might wake up and I've got the crochet hook in my hand, or a sewing needle in my hand, and I've not nodded off, But I'm definitely I like to get stuck into it, and I just want to work all day. I hardly want to stop and go, but coffee is a good draw for a break. And I'm probably like an unhealthy artist in that way. I'll just keep going until I feel like that a wheel falls off or something.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that's like the dream, to be like full-time, like working on a project.
So can you both talk a little bit about what ideas you're generating at the moment, or what you're working on currently?
Well, I just touched on that. I'm working on my RADF grant, so that's going to be a series of artworks that will be presented as a set of text-based work. So something new for me. I've not really done much text-based work before. And that will be depicting quotes or sort of meaningful messages from highly sensitive people, which is something that I identify with, and how that kind of interacts with climate crisis that we're combating at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of how that finger knitting will, I guess, get across those meaningful things that are meaningful to me, and I hope to other people too. So that's my main focus at the moment.
Is it hard to finger knit a word? I don't know.
Not really, because I've knit all the colours, and then it's hard to decide what colours. That's the hard part. And then doing the text. So obviously I can only go as small as what the thickness of the wool allows. And the wool that I'm using for this project is actually from a rug maker on Mount Tamarine named Beck Anderson. And I'm really happy to be able to support her work through that, because she hand dyes all of her wool, and it's all 100% merino wool. And it's lovely to work with. It's especially made for rug making. So yeah, I think, being able to use that wool and manipulate it in the text-based way it's a new venture, and it's exciting. So good. Yeah.
And my art practice, I work with a few different ideals that I'm trying to get through. Well, this year has brought out the COVID, has really sort of made me appreciate home, I guess, and that's it was a really big thing. Like I was saying before about sculpture and not having any space. Well, I became a bit of a hoarder. I think I just started collecting so much stuff.
This is a safe place.
Good. And and it's living in something like that. When you're an artist, you kind of overlook that you've got stuff climbing up the walls. I wouldn't say I was an environmental artist, but I definitely feel connected to the natural world, and it does inspire so much of my work. So
yeah, I think we're definitely on the same page in terms of what you just said there.
So when I mentioned I sketched my designs out for my sculpture, then it's about working out what sort of armature I'll need, which is the skeletal support system within it. And, that can be, depending on the size, it can be a welded metal frame out of like inch bar, or if it's a finer, smaller piece, it'll be wire, often wire. I use that quite a lot in my work. So I'll make that armature up, and then I'll attach it to a backing board, and then I'll grow the work around that. So that's quite often how I'll do it. These days I do use my sewing machine quite a lot, but then I like to go back over the top and do all this hand, it's sort of embroidery, but it's like the really bad embroidery with all the stitches are bunched up. And I just love that. It's like so random, but it's like a rebelling from my very structured sewing for fashion. Everything had to be perfect, and I rebel with my art. I want people to see the knots and the bunches in the stitch work, and I think it gives it a real character. So I like to incorporate that into my work, and in the larger pieces I'll use crochet, because that gives me that same kind of textured effect. So like the scale and what we were talking about, the different types of materials we use, I have in my mind what I want it to look like, and I'll use exactly that technique to get that sort of appearance in the surface of a work. And large and small scale are different, like different processes altogether in a way. I've also, with the 3D printer filament, when I hand draw that, that's a different look again. Although I still call it soft sculpture because it's a flexible material that I use. I can do a lot more with that, and it can be a hollow object. I'll work over wire if it needs an armature, but the body can be empty. As in, if I'm doing a soft sculpture, it has to be a skin over top of a frame, and I often stuff it so that I can puff out a look and get a nice soft kind of body form. So that's my process. I often also use a gathering foot in my work. So I'll cut strips of fabric and then I'll gather it up. So it's very frou-frou, you know. And I love incorporating that because to me, I'm trying to capture like the essence of coral or soft, like foamy kind of surfaces.
Touchy feely.
And it really is tactile.